of Serial Experiments Lain. Are we good to go? We certainly are. So I actually have a retouch episode, well, the last few episodes of Serial Experiments Lain. Where we left off last time, oh my god. there was a lot to unpack. That was an episode. Well, those were episodes, I should say. God, those were like, your brain just went after a while. It was something else, I must say. It was something else. I don't think I fully comprehend everything that happened in the episode, which I kind of think makes sense because you're not meant to like comprehend it on first viewing. It's one of those repeat viewings, and you actually kind of get a complete picture. But man, I want to see how this whole entire series wraps up as well, just because it's just pure insanity at this point when it comes to like it developing to this point. I was like, bruh, it's so goddamn good though. So anyway, actually put on Twitter actually gone live. You can press the button, that is. Right, let's put that there. Let's put that there. And with that, I do believe we actually are good to go. I hope we are. Yes, we certainly are. So let's get this shot on the road. So in 3, 2, 1. Let's start this thing absolutely now. Yeah, so the thing with this show is that there's a lot. It's a lot also from the standpoint of like the god of the world as well. Because this show tends to actually kind of examine the concept of like they treat the wired as a world essentially. It's not an entity. It's not a it's not a secondary thing to our own like existence. It's a world basically. So what happens is they kind of look at the idea of like, okay, so if this is actually a world, then does the world then need a god? If that world doesn't need a god to govern it, does our own world then need a god to govern it as well? That's the thing. It's a very kind of like, it's a very kind of important question to ask. I guess it actually is kind of true, especially at that point in time, because we know now what the internet actually kind of is. The internet is almost like a secondary like advancement in our own kind of life. It's basically another bit of our own life. Back then, they didn't really know much about it, so possibly in that era, they kind of imagined it to be like a new world, essentially. This place that would actually kind of become where we go to. So then our own society itself would be like rendered useless, basically. Which I guess in some cases can in theory also be attributed to today as well. I'm not too sure. Haven't looked at the entire effects of the internet, but that's what it kind of does in theory describe. It actually is kind of an interesting like point to actually bring in the concept of like those who govern it, but at the same time, Masami, who was the person who was actually appointed as god, is self-appointed. So it's like we understand our own god, essentially. We understand our overarching god. But in this kind of world, or in the world of the Wired, it's self-appointed. It's not someone who was. It's not someone who's like the god, essentially. It's a self-appointed god. So it's actually a false god, essentially. Hello, how's it going? And there you go. That's how I understood the whole entire episode, at least. And I guess as well, the other thing to note is the idea that Masami, or Eddie, is Eddie actually went reversed. Essentially, in essence, he, I believe, was human and acquired the concept of God itself. Essentially, I guess in a way, Lain's a reverse. Lain's a god essentially, but then she acquired a human form. I think. I'm so glad, actually. That means a lot to me. Thank you so much. I'm so glad actually also here as well, especially watching Lain with me, because at least actually at least have someone to actually converse with. Whoa, shit! My chair fell down. My chair just completely fell down. There we go. That's better. I'm actually so glad you're here as well. It helps a lot having someone to converse with. Because this show, it do be complicated. Whoa. Whoa. But yeah, I guess essentially this whole entire show is almost, it's like a tandem narrative in a way. One half of the show is about her, like, kind of going to the Wide, essentially, but then the second half is actually about her realizing that she's actually not Lain, essentially. And the Lain we've actually been following is someone completely different. It's interesting that it kind of doesn't through also go for the whole entire event, this whole entire show, because there's a goddamn a lot in this show that's actually transpired. It's actually nice to actually kind of get refreshed on the entire thing, but also then it kind of tells you there's a little bit more to it. Oh shit! Hello, how's it going? Though it is a recap. It comes with a different perspective now because now you actually know the truth about Lain. But the real question is, will we find out about Freddy Krueger alien though? It has got a really awesome direction to it, even though it's a recap. If only all recaps were like this, you wouldn't care. Freddy Krueger alien. I do really wish the OST just. I do wish all OSTs like had this much bop to it. Though I do actually wonder if also Lain exists to kind of bring out the things that people don't want to be brought out as well, because the whole thing with Alice as well was kind of like a massive thing. Because Lain was kind of there when the whole entire thing was going down, so I'm kind of thinking whether maybe Lain also exists to kind of. Lain's the subconscious in a way, I guess. The manifestation of subconscious? Possibly, question mark, who knows? It's impressive that she actually texts that whole entire message while having one eye closed and actually not looking at the screen. I never noticed that before, but that's actually very impressive. So I guess Alice is a massive important piece of this whole entire puzzle as well when you think about it. Because because again, I kind of theorized at some point that maybe Alice isn't actually there. Essentially, like Alice is an illusion. Because I guess it does hint at the whole entire philosophy of Alice in Wonderland as well. The idea of like with the Cheshire smiles and then Alice as well. It's kind of a key thing. So whether or not Alice exists to actually just be like the last layer of like humanity that Lain of the Wired actually has left. Once she's gone, the entirety of her life just kind of crumbles. Possibly. Bruh. He's basically just called her Windows 10. Because it does make sense, because ever since she arrived, the protocols all began to change around in The Wired. So her being software does, to some degree, actually make sense. But also, bruh. Is that do that be, as I say, do that be a vibe and blob? It's her. Huh? Bruh. Love how we went from recap to what the hell is happening. Wait a minute. Is that Freddy Krueger alien? Bro, it's Freddy Krueger Lain instead. Bro. Lain literally became a sleep paralysis demon. Alien Lain. Bruh. I can understand. My brain just kind of like, huh? More importantly, Freddy Krueger Alien Lain. Great Alien Lain, I should say. And just like that, just like the original Freddy Krueger Alien, she disappears. Of course it is. It's pretty straightforward in the context of Lain. Lain's got like layers upon layers upon layers. You wouldn't be cold in the winter how many layers Lain actually has in an anime, bro. Uh-oh. Oh no. So she's altering the entire world now. She's like, bro, don't worry about it. I've got this. It's a pretty cool transition, actually. She was already deleting stuff way back when as well. A certain memories she actually was getting rid of. Bruh. Right, so yeah, that was a doozy of an episode as well. Going to like the final section of this whole entire show. So yeah, I guess Lain do be vibing on the wide now. And then dude just like, by the way, you're just software, don't worry about it. You've got this. And then everyone else just in the corner just going, bruh. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting though, because technically, I guess her manifesting as the grey alien Freddy Krueger, to some degree, could also mean that she's alien to her own existence as well. Like she's just vibing somewhere else that no one knows about, even she doesn't know about it herself. That's why she kind of manifests as the alien. But I also do maintain to some degree as well the Lain that exists in the wild is also like a kind of like the self, like almost to some degree is like the self-conscious. Yeah, I probably watched the whole entirety of the last section of this whole entire show today. Probably get it over and done. We probably will get it finished today. So yeah, I mean it's very it's an interesting concept. I don't know whether or not it could hold true because again, Lane's many things essentially. She's not just one single entity. She's like multiple different things. She's a goddess to some degree. She's also human. She's also an alien now. And yeah, there's just a bunch of different things going on with Lain. But I also kind of also think the Lain you see, the Lain that's actually kind of is very smug about everything, is also to some degree what you hide beneath the surface. Essentially, what you try to escape to on the internet. You escape to the internet to actually get away from the things you don't want to think about, essentially. So if Lain exists to kind of like bring that to light, there's no escape, there's no sense of security for you, essentially. So Lain kind of doesn't then exist as the idea to actually say, even on the web, even on the wired, you actually have no sense of security or sense of like privacy, which is a fear that we have today. It's a very well-known fear. We have that fear. We have that fear in society. The idea of security. The idea that actually security itself doesn't actually exist. So I'm guessing Lain exists to kind of also manifest the whole entire idea. Possibly. Question mark. I don't know. And to actually say then there might be two Alices as well kind of does infer also. It's quite interesting. Again, the whole entire thing is very kind of like it's very complicated. It's not one of those things you will probably get on like first or second viewing. It's probably gonna take like at least 5 or 6 to actually kind of get the whole entire picture. But it does a good job actually kind of giving like a I guess a pseudo understanding. You have to kind of rewatch it constantly to actually kind of get little infinite details about it. But anyway, let's actually start episode 12 in 3, 2, 1. Let's start the thing absolutely now. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I kind of again, Lain's not just one thing. Lain's not one entity or one concept. Lain's many concepts. It depends on the person as well, I think, as well. I think Lain, it also depends on who Lain's talking to, essentially. Lain exists differently to different people. Like, Alice is probably the only human contact I would say Lain has in the world that she was originally in. So without Lain there, Lain doesn't really exist, doesn't really have a human connection. But then also, the whole thing with Lain's, like, the idea and the concept of transhumanism as well. Like, the idea of actually kind of going beyond. I guess Chisa kind of was the first. I guess Chisa kind of does represent, to some degree, the concept of, like, the person, like, going for the idea of transhumanism. And then, the effects that come with it, essentially. But above all else, very fascinating show that does still hold very well. She's the first that we kind of do in 3C. I think Eri probably was like the first. I think Chisa's the first one we see, essentially. I think without Chisa, we probably wouldn't have that oh god, you actually saw Freddy Krueger alien. So I think to some degree, Cheetah represents the plunge into like the transhumanism future in a way. As if to some degree, if it's going for the whole transhumanism angle as well, I have zero idea. So many things that this show actually has. Grey aliens are very spooky. Aliens in general are quite spooky. So the problem is with Lain deleting the memories though. Like the person who was the actual person with the memories doesn't actually leave the memories. So they're basically just like, was I going insane? What's happening here? They've swapped, haven't they? Lane's become Alice and Alice has become Lain. Oh. Do one of my partial like rambles about Lain actually kind of hold true to some degree? Bruh, do the world be going that little bit crazy? Become as gods. Yeah. Boys, we're near automata now. I vibe. Love how Eddie's actually speaking like, by the way, that god, don't know who that guy is. He's just like, by the way, I'm god. I'm like, bruh? Bruh? Nah, dude's still living. He's just vibing in a different dimension. Play like a damn fiddle. I was gonna say, there's no place on that there's no place like that on Earth. Imagine they actually did him for it, like acquire the knowledge actually to actually like do neural linking like 1998. That would have been wild. Dude, he's seeing. He's seeing. Oh boy, Joe. I can't speak now. My brain is so destroyed. Oh boy, Judging the Carter's now gone. Oh boy. F's in the chat for oh boy, Judging the Carter. The best boy. Judging the Carter. She's gonna waltz on in there like, Lain, you... Okay, wow. She's gonna waltz on in there somehow and probably just go, Lain, by the way, you were a grey alien yesterday, could you explain that? He's gonna say, this is very Sono Yuta now. Oh shit, she's still on her hand phone. She's still on the hand phone. Who's she talking to though? This is basically Sino Yuta at this point. It's like no different. Well, it's more of a supercomputer, to be honest. It's less a rune, just more of just one massive computer. Yeah, essentially, Alice was kind of the only character that she connected on a human level to. Well, this is going crazy. Even more crazy it was beforehand. She's basically like, so what you're saying is, we're vibing someone completely differently now, bro. It's like, yeah. Yeah. And that's Lain. Oh, vibe check. Technically, she's the only friendship she ever actually had. She's the only connection she still has to the actual world itself. Without Alice there, she has no connections, essentially, to, like, the material world. Besides what she understood to be her life. It's not the good God. Say the words correctly. It's not the good God. Oh shit, it's Master Hand. Lane check, bro. Lane check. He's just like, bruh, I'm God though. She literally just checked his vibes. Literally. He actually wanted everyone to see, like, the manifestation of a vibe check. That was it. When the hell does it turn into a goddamn Cronenberg movie? He's actually now just become a blob. He went from having no fashion sense to just basically a blob. Very Tetsuo the Iron Man as well. Very Tetsuo the Iron Man. He literally just got Tetsuo'd. I'm gonna go watch Tetsuo the Iron Man now. That film was rad. Wow. Vibe check, essentially. That is the mood of the Haunter episode. But I guess it does actually then, it does to some degree answer a question that's actually kind of been, like, just whirling around in the sky, basically. Is the idea of, like, the acting god, essentially. Like, in essence, how he is literally just a person that he believes himself to be a god, essentially. He's not, like, he's not the god that we understand to be like the overall creator of everything, essentially. So it's kind of one of those things that it does pose the question that in that kind of world, is there a kind of like a god person, or is it just someone who kind of like becomes that, just takes on the mantle of becoming that person, essentially, the kind of the false god in a way, not a person who is rightfully that person, but the person who believes himself to be that person, essentially, kind of like how it happens in Fire Punch, but to a different degree. But yeah, it's an interesting kind of concept, because it's something that would otherwise be a very kind of true statement, especially in the kind of, if say our world became like Lain's, like in essence, what would happen if, say, the society itself actually kind of transitioned over to the wired? Who then do you become, essentially? Just my brain just stopped for a second there. Like, what happens there? What happens then? Does everything that we know that's in our own society carry over? Is there a sense of government? Is there a sense of justice? Is there a god? Are there places for everyone? Is those kind of things that otherwise are kind of questioned, essentially? And it was actually kind of cool that the anime actually kind of just says to you there and then, by the way, you're essentially acting as a god yourself. Like, before that point, who was there, essentially? You're just a person who thinks that they're god, and it's actually kind of true. Like, in essence, he was once in the real world where there exists a god, essentially. So he disappeared to the actual wide world, actually become the god of that wide world, but essentially he's not. He's just still the person that was there beforehand, just without a body, essentially. He's a person who he's deluded himself to be the god. He's the god complex, essentially, to the kind of like to the most like definitive of all degrees, I guess. He's a definition of a god complex character. Don't get me wrong, like characters like Eisen, characters like Griffith to some degree. I still don't know. I'm still kind of questioning Griffith, essentially. I should put on Twitter. I'm actually watching last episode now. Yeah, we had characters like yeah, he was essentially trying to like vibe check. Oh shit! He was trying to vibe check completely, saying, "Oh yeah, by the way, there's no god. We don't need a god. I'm like the stand-in, essentially, to that degree." He was saying like there is no god in the real world, so we don't actually necessarily need a god in our own world, into his own understanding. But at the same time, what he's doing, what he's actually trying to do, and everything like that, basically contradicts his own statement, essentially, because him doing all those things then kind of manifests the idea that it has to actually be a god, essentially. So he basically just played himself entirely. He was like, oh yeah, by the way, we don't need that. Our world doesn't actually need that kind of concept. We're actually completely A-okay. When in essence, he basically created his own sense of his own existence of God. But it was a false god. It wasn't the god that exists to actually kind of rule over or kind of create everyone. It was actually who was the false god, essentially. He was a god that believed himself to be the god. If that makes any sense. I don't know. Lain, bro. Lain. But anyways, actually watch the following episode in 3, 2, 1. That should be a thing. Absolutely. Now. Yeah, he essentially did actually do that. He essentially tried to stop the idea that there actually is a god by creating the concept that actually is a god, essentially. Which is kind of the most amazing flawed logic I've ever seen in my lifetime. He was like, "Oh yeah, concrete. I'm good. I strongly believe." He's like, "I'm strongly believe that there's actually no god in the wired." When in creating his own sense of godlike stature as well, which just. This is kind of like, congratulations, you actually played yourself completely. Oh god. Good old Masami. He was just, Masami was just kind of like, oh yeah, by the way, no god. But you just said you are god. It's like, fuck! Oh, I love this show to bits. It's so goddamn good, this show. I kind of glad I actually waited all this time to actually kind of watch it. I imagine if I watched this when I was younger, I'd be like, huh? But now I'm like, But yeah, I mean, there's a lot more to it, don't get me wrong, because you have the whole entire idea of, like, who Lain truly actually is at that point. And then you have the whole entire idea of then the concept of, like, if, as we know, if they actually did in theory transition to the wide, does the things that we understand in our own society kind of carry over as well? If that actually did in theory happen to our own world, is there an overarching person that rules over all as well, like the essence, the god? If they try to prove the concept that doesn't exist, then they actually kind of are in theory proving the concept true, essentially. That's the problem. Because it kind of goes for all things as well, technically speaking. Like, in essence, if a collective exists to some degree, someone had to create it as well, so it kind of are in theory just kind of proving that notion true, essentially. It's very clever, actually. Ah yes, Tetsuo the Iron Man. We're back, boys. This kind of does remind me a little bit of the actual last boss in FMA as well. Bro, don't tell me that she might just kind of create a pseudo paradox. As it actually resets, unless it, she just hit the fuck go back button. She's like, fuck it, go back. We screwed up, boys, we're going back. Okay, so if she returns, essentially, does that kind of create a paradox? Unless she actually isn't in the fuck go back timeline. No, she's actually basically just reset the entire thing. Like, she actually doesn't actually appear anywhere that we actually know her to appear in. Yeah, she essentially just basically reset everything, but she actually doesn't actually appear in it, essentially. So she fixed the entire timeline by just kind of just going, you know what? She pulled a Nier. Literally, she pulled a Nier. Which also, I guess, kind of also doesn't actually then fix the entire thing in Nier as well. Uh, that was deep. Well, this is basically the end of Madoka Magica, the more I think about it. This is literally this is very similar to the end of Madoka Magica. It's our boy Joji Nakata. He's okay in this timeline. I guess she kind of resets the entire thing to actually just be normal. Because at the end of Madoka, if I remember correctly, she erases her existence as well. Literally, he's just repairing stuff now. He's living the good vibe. Oh shit. Intro. It is indeed a lost present day and present time. You won't hear the guy laugh at us when he actually says it as well. Sad times, bros, sad times. So in the end, she went from existing to questioning her own existence to actually Lin living alone. Ooh, shit! Drop my bracelet. But to that degree, she actually didn't really help everyone to actually kind of live an existence that won't actually hurt anyone, essentially. She's just getting vibe checked now. She's getting vibe checked. That's dangerous. Do you want to start the whole entire thing again? That stuff's dangerous. Hello, hello. Oh, this is very symbolic. Floating table. Floating table. So essentially, in this world, they actually kind of got the life they all wanted, essentially, to a degree. The life that's free of, like, the fears of the future, and also the life they actually didn't really want. Damn. Well, there we go. That was Serial Experiments Lain in its entirety. And damn, that was like, that was so goddamn good. Holy shit, that was so good. Oh man, that was amazing. That was just like my brain's somewhat completely different. But I'm currently like that was really damn good. Yeah, so I guess theoretically speaking, she does become like she essentially doesn't forget the existence she wants as well, to a degree. It's not to the same degree as it was before, but to the also then same degree. It's like it's a safer existence in a way. I guess technically speaking, she is kind of like she's very omnipresent in the world. She always will be, essentially. The idea of her being alone is maybe just a thought, I guess, because she can then, I guess, in theory, manifest back into society itself, which I guess does imply itself at the end. So yeah, I mean, it's a very good way to actually end the whole entire series in a way, because obviously it ends on a really depressing note because she kind of just becomes all alone in a vacuum where no one knows her, but in essence she helps everyone. So everyone essentially she becomes like the boss from MGS3. Like she kind of goes down and no one knowing who she, no one actually knowing the truth, but actually kind of inadvertently helping. To the same degree. It's like she's kind of pseudo like the boss, but it's also very much similar to how Madoka Magica ends as well, because if I remember correctly, Madoka Magica ends with Madoka erasing her existence from the world and actually becoming God to actually then fix what was going on in the current existence, because it was always going to happen, essentially, if I remember correctly. If I remember my brief, well, not my brief, but my watching of my watching of Madoka Magica way back when. But yeah, man, okay, so there's way too much in that series actually kind of like go over in a very kind of short space of time, because god, there is a lot. This show is a many things. It's not just a science fiction show. It's not just a show about a girl just kind of wearing a bear suit going around fixing the internet, essentially. No, there's a lot. There's a lot going on in this show. It's one of those ones that you have to kind of it's your own interpretation of the events. It's one of those ones that if you actually kind of like just sit down in the room for like about an hour or two and just kind of think about it, you might actually kind of get your own like interpretation of the events. But how I viewed it was always the idea of like it's the fear of the it's a fear of the future of transhumanism and the internet itself, and actually what it can in very possess to humanity in a way, which is a very valid concept, because we don't necessarily know even today what the actual internet will in theory bring. We actually get neural linking now, so what this show did in theory actually allude to actually is in very transpiring in today's society as well. So it's one of those things that even we don't know what's going to happen, but at the same time what this show does then pose is the idea that, okay, so you have that, but what happens if we migrate entirely to the actual wide world? What happens then? Is there a person that governs this entire thing, or is it someone we deem to be the governor of the entire thing? And actually it comes this idea that it's the false sense of God, but also then at the same time it's the idea of like, I guess it also poses the question of like, if we cease our human body and actually kind of become just like the brain itself, can we evolve? Is the human body itself the limitation that we currently have in our society or in the world itself that isn't allowing us actually kind of progress beyond this point, which I guess is the transhumanism part of the whole entire narrative, is this idea that the human body is essentially the kind of drawback that we have. If you don't have that, then you actually can in theory go beyond, but in the same time it poses then what happens without it. Like in essence, can you live within a world where you don't have that body you knew of? Essentially, what happens then? Like in essence, you don't know the existence. You don't know your own existence at that point. You're just an entity at that point. You're not theoretically a human, I guess. You're just an entity. You're just an existence. connected to someone else, which is kind of like, I guess, what they want. They want this idea of connection, but at the same time, the connection it kind of brings isn't the connection that you kind of so desire in a way. You kind of want. So if Lain continued in her own world, she will see that world kind of come to life and transpire in a way. So if she kind of then rewrites the entirety of her world and actually then have her existence taken out of it, that entire like problem that could exist is taken completely out. At the same time, whether or not it would in theory kind of get taken out entirely is another kind of question that might actually kind of be left to your own imagination, essentially. Like in essence, possibly at some point the technology might actually come to fruition still, and actually the entire idea is then brought back to the forefront of the entire world, and actually at that point it kind of creates a sense of paradox in a way. In essence, even though she fixed that timeline, there's still the concept of like whether or not the same thing will transpire, but just in a different set of like circumstances. Because we know the circumstances in Lain's actual timeline. We know her own existence and actually the circumstances that led to what happened at the end of it. We don't necessarily know if, say, the same thing might transpire from a different person. That's the other thing we don't really know. But it might not. That's the thing. But still, above all else, it's a very, very fascinating show that does, in theory, actually pose a lot of good questions. Especially to actually how we essentially view the essentially how we view our own world, essentially, in a way. Yeah, it is very Evangelion. It's very Ava about a lot of things. I wouldn't be surprised if one was inspired by the other, in a way, because it does actually feel a lot like it to a certain degree. Because I believe it even talks about the human instrumentality as well, which actually is the project in Evangelion, but is actually the concept in this one. So yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that it's still. A lot of the questions aren't technically answered, but they're not meant to be, essentially. They're meant to be left to your own imagination, actually, how then you view the events. It's not one of those things that the show's trying to answer all the questions that it's posing. It's trying to make you kind of think for yourself, actually kind of say, okay, so I think that because of this, essentially. It's not one of those shows that kind of exist to kind of answer the question of like, okay, so what happens if this world actually transpires? It gives you what might actually happen, but doesn't actually give the whole entire picture. It leaves it to you to think about, okay, so if, say, this whole entire thing carried on, what would happen? Would that world actually be able to actually kind of coexist with the current world we have? Or then would the world that we know, which is the world we currently live in, collapse? Which is actually kind of valid, and actually then, if, say, they want to prove the concept of God not existing, and actually God not existing in that world, then is there a sense of govern? Will anyone ever govern that world? Is there a sense that there is like a person? Will there be a sense of justice, essentially? Will there actually be set rules in place that kind of allow us to live the life that we're currently living outside on the inside? It's the other thing to know, because again, the idea of the creator is a very kind of important thing. You'd actually kind of pose all those kind of like theories true, then you actually kind of have a society within a society that's actually going to collapse. So, practically speaking, on the outside it might collapse in its own way, but on the inside it might collapse still as well. Because it's not built to. We're trying to escape from one collapsing society to kind of enter a new society that will once again collapse. Because the same things that will happen in our world will happen in a new world, essentially. That's the problem. Like, it's kind of the thing that actually that the creators and stuff like that tend to actually kind of like not think about. It's the idea that even though you're creating this new world, actually kind of beat the current world, actually kind of be this place of like wonder, what we know to be the problems in our own society will then manifest itself into the new society as well, because not everything's ever going to be like 100% a-okay. There's going to be clearly problems afoot, as they say. So it's one of those things that it's a very interesting idea, because I always like narratives that explore the idea of like the transhumanism, because it's one of those things that it is a very kind of important question that is very important to today's society as well. How rapidly changing the world that she's becoming, especially with the idea of like the advancement in the human as well. We have neuroscience becoming a bit more an apparent thing. Neural links as well. That's the other thing to note. So yeah, it was. So Lain and Evangelion do actually have a very similar origin to the questions it asks essentially. But yeah, I mean, damn, that was a really good show. It's one of those shows you don't forget about after you kind of actually finish watching it. You kind of you will think about it for the longest time. You won't ever ever not stop thinking about how Lain actually is. Lain's one of those shows that will, as Lain actually is, will always be there in your mind. It will exist there to actually kind of keep think about what could actually happen. And also kind of like that it does actually kind of then say that Lain does in theory kind of she exists to the people that she actually comes into contact with essentially. Like in essence, that whole entire idea that possibly the Lains that we saw differ from person to person essentially. In essence, the Lain that Alice sees that she doesn't very kind of question her might in theory be the subconscious kind of coming to the forefront. That actually doesn't want to be seen, possibly, who knows. But yeah, his anime is very interesting that I need to sit on for a long while to actually kind of think about it a little bit more and then actually talk about it a little bit more as well, because I don't think I'm fully equipped right now to actually kind of answer every single question this show's thrown at me just yet. But man, do I love this show. I need to go hunt down Technolize next, and also go hunt down what's the other show I was on the hunt down as well? There's another one in between. I guess I guess I got Proxy, but I already own it. It's one in between as well. I was gonna go hunt down. It's very similar to Lain. But yeah, I mean, we'll end it there. I'm gonna lie down for a long while and think about this show, because I need to actually I need to have like a coffee or something. Isn't Abe's got like 4 shows? He's got Habine Renmei. He's got Serial Experiments Lain. That one Over the Wall. I can't remember the name of it. Oh yeah, Nia. Is it Nia 7? Nia 7. That's the one. And Technolize, I believe, as well. You also can't Rewrite D, but Rewrite D is a train wreck of a show. So do not count Rewrite D. It's a terrible show. But yeah, I'll have to Technolize is the only one's a bit more of an issue. I think Near Under 7 is also kind of an issue as well, because I don't think it ever got released over here. I don't think it did. Have a quick look on Amazon. I know Technolize did, but it's out of print now. No, I get Nivea instead. I got Nivea cream. That's not what I wanted. I didn't want Nivea cream, bruh. What's an anime? Give me DVDs, bruh. Give me DVDs. Give me the DVDs, bruh. Oh shit, that's expensive. Oh, that's expensive. Is that okay, but does it okay, I don't know, I have to look at that then. But Technolize I know is out of print over here, so that's more of an issue as well, because I don't think there's a legal stream of it either, because I think Funimation region locked it. So that's also an issue. Near Under 7 is also another issue as well I need to go and look into, but I know Habine Renmei is actually out here. That I know for sure is out here. So I'd have to worry about that one. That actually can in theory buy. Everything else, bit more of a problem. But that one, that's A-okay. That's actually kind of cheap as well. It's only on DVD though, which actually is kind of a shame. But yeah, I mean, hope you actually have enjoyed this whole entire stream of Serial Experiments Lain. It's been a complete utter pleasure watching this show. I absolutely love it. It's so goddamn good. Probably will watch it probably next year again. Actually, kind of just get a different opinion on it and actually see what I can in free decipher. So yeah, we'll leave it there for today. So you actually have enjoyed this whole entire series of me covering Lain and doing free. Leave a follow on Twitch, because indeed it's been quite a bit. If you have enjoyed this whole entire stream series of Lain and doing free, leave a like on YouTube, because indeed it's been quite a bit. If you have then enjoyed this whole entire stream as a whole on YouTube and doing free, leave a sub, because indeed that's been quite a bit. If you have then enjoyed this whole entire stream as a whole on YouTube and doing free, leave a like, leave a follow on Twitter, or join Discord as well, because both do help me quite a lot, and both of them tell you when new streams are live and any other streams I do as well. But next time, whether I cover next, I actually have no idea what it will in theory be. It might be Dorohedoro, or it might just be, if I can find it, oh, what's it called? Fuck. Utena, that's the one. Either one of those two. It depends on which one I actually kind of think about covering first. Till next time, I have indeed been a Dry Match. We'll see you guys later. Bye for now.